flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Rich Hofer. I'm the chair of the Elections Committee of the RCSC Board of Directors, and it is an honor to welcome you to the first of two candidate forums that we're going to be holding this year. The other one will be held Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock right here at Sundial Auditorium. I would ask you to please, if you have not already done so, silence your cell phones by either turning them off or putting them on vibrating mode so that nobody is interrupted through the course of our fun time together here today. We have 7 candidates vying for 3 three-year terms and 1 two-year term. We have 6 of them with us today. One could not make it today. I would like to also let you know my co-chair is Dale Lehrer, and Dale is the secretary of the RCSC board. She could not be here either. She is on her way. In fact, right now she's in the air flying back to Sun City. She will be here Wednesday evening. I would like to introduce the board members that are here. We have our president, Sue Wilson, in the back. Thank you, Sue. Our treasurer, Sheila Rooney, is here. Where are you, Sheila? She's in the back as well. Okay. Dan Schroeder, off here to my left, standing up. Thank you, Dan. And Darla Akins is also with us today. I'd like to also introduce the members of our elections committee. These guys put in an awful lot of work, and they do it tirelessly all year long. I know we basically deal with elections only in the fall and in the winter, but these guys start in February and work diligently all year long. So as I announce their names, if they would stand up. The first one I'm going to announce can't stand up. She's up in the booth right now, and that's Ida Eisert. Also, I would like to introduce Warren Clucker, right in the back here. We also have, where is it, Denny Nichols. I didn't know if I saw Denny or not. Ron Jesse, who could not be here today. He kind of messed up his back playing golf today. And over here, my good friend Tom Marone, who's going to act as the timer for today's event. The rules for our forum are, we are going to open up by having a 2-minute opening statement from each of the candidates. Following the opening statement, I will ask the first question, and we're going to try something new this year. We currently are live streaming this on YouTube, and we'd like to say hi to all of the YouTubers out there. And also, those folks are going to be not just watching, they can ask questions as well. And I have them monitored here, and will be fed the questions. So we will be doing is taking a question from the floor, and if we have a YouTube question, we'll take that, and we'll rotate back and forth throughout the course of the event. Anyone with a question will please approach the podium and ask your question. And as I said, we'll alternate between the podium and the YouTubers. Anyone with a second question, please wait until everyone interested has had a chance to ask their question. And then if time permits, you can ask one additional question. Questions are to be directed to all of the candidates for their response. They should be straightforward and to the point, designed to get the candidates' views on how they would function as a member of the board of directors. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to your questions. If a question is asked that is not fair or appropriate, I'll withdraw the question or ask that you reword it accordingly. When questions are asked of the candidates, I will call on them to respond in a random order for their response. The forum is scheduled for 2 hours long. If the members are finished with their questions early, and the YouTubers are, we'll allow each candidate to give their closing statement and we'll adjourn early. Otherwise, we'll stick to the 2-hour time limit as close as possible. If we don't get many questions from the floor, I am prepared to ask a number of questions. I've never had to do that. This is my 3rd year as the chair of this committee. Usually we have plenty of questions to go around. This year we are doing something different, something that we tried last year, and that is in 2020, we initiated a thing called the lightning round. This is where we ask each candidate one question, and they're given 2 minutes to come up with their own answer. Then we move on to another question and another lightning round answer. Each candidate, when they entered the auditorium today, they chose a number. That number is totally at random. I don't know what number they chose, and that number corresponds to the question they will receive, so it is totally at random. Speaking of at random, the seating order that you see here today was also drawn at random and will be redrawn for Wednesday night's forum. Wednesday night, yeah. What we are trying to do with the lightning round is highlight the candidates' knowledge of Sun City and the RCSC. I don't expect, by the way, that all candidates will be able to answer all questions. That's usually not the case, but it will depend on how many clubs they're involved in, how long they've lived in Sun City, and that type of thing. But it gives us just a general knowledge. We'll do that about an hour into the episode today. And with that, let's get started. The first person on our list that we're going to have with their 2-minute opening statement is to my left, and that's Karen McAdam. Karen?
Good afternoon. My name is Karen McAdam. Hello?
There you go.
There we go. Okay. Yes, it's truly a pleasure for me to see each and every one of you who is here, as well as those we can't see who are logging in remotely, because your attention bears witness to how seriously you take this civic responsibility, and I truly hope that this event is worthy of your time. For those of you who don't know my story, this year has been a little rough, somewhat unusual to say the least, and perhaps even historic. It may be the first time ever in Sun City that a member duly elected to a full term on the RCSC board 1 year, that would be 2020 for me, had to run again for that same office just 1 year later. If that's confusing, well, catch me after the forum today, or write or call, and I'd be happy to explain. One happy consequence of the events of this year has been mirrored across our nation, as in community after community, residents, for whatever reasons, have started paying closer attention to their most local level of government. In many places, registering dismay at what they are finding, and in the process, determining to recapture the essence of being a self-governing people. If an increased awareness of local governance is taking shape in Sun City, well, I think that would be a very good thing. The RCSC Corporation is not some kind of trophy that we display on our We Love Corporations shelf. It's not insignificant, but it is merely a means to an end. A corporation is only valuable inasmuch as it achieves the purposes for which it was established, which in our case is captured in our Articles of Incorporation, quote, to do anything and everything lawfully necessary in the interest of the membership. That's the rallying cry for the board and the standard to which I pledge to hold myself if you see fit to re-elect me.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Next up, John Nowakowski. John?
Good afternoon. I'm John Nowakowski. I am an engineer. I decided to run for this position on the board because after looking at some of the things that previous boards have done, I have some objections to the processes and the bylaws that they have. Over the years, the boards, plural, have made it almost impossible for us, the members, to have any say-so in how the RCSC operates. I have an objection to that. Within the mission statement of the RCSC, it says they operate the facilities to the benefit of the members. Each and every one of you who owns a property also signed an agreement with the RCSC where the RCSC says they will operate facilities for the benefit of the members. I don't believe that is happening right now. I am not a person that gets angry. I'm going to go in there, throw my head into the ring, and do something about it. I'm only one of 9. What are the things that can be done? If we start bringing at least some of the issues up front, hopefully in time we can do that. You know, 30 years ago, recycling was unheard of. Now it's common. So If we start with some of those processes in the RCSC, maybe we, the members, can turn around and get some more input on how the corporation is run for our benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up is Stella Van Ness.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you, everyone, for this opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Stella Van Ness. I've been involved in healthcare and healthcare administration for over 30 years. I have served on, consulted for, and reported to numerous boards of directors, including as president, COO, and board member of a national medical consulting firm. My husband and I moved to Arizona in 1982, then to Sun City in 2011. I have been actively involved in one capacity or another helping the people of Sun City since 2013. I served as a medical triage person or nurse for all of the Sun Bowl, Sundial, and some club events beginning in 2013. I am a big supporter of clubs. Additionally, during that time, I also served as a member of the COC. In 2013, I made the decision to dedicate my time and energies to the people of Sun City. I could have renewed my licenses and accreditations and gone back to work, but instead, I have chosen to concentrate on helping the people of Sun City and not to work elsewhere. As such, I have remained serving on the board of directors for the Sun City Foundation for the last 5+ years, and during my years as president of the foundation, I introduced and worked to implement the Santas for Seniors program. I have also served on the board of directors for the recreation centers of Sun City from 2017 until the end of 2019. One of my goals is that I want to continue to update facilities, but I also want to ensure that we are taking care of the assets that we currently have through good preventive maintenance programs and monitoring of those assets. I love Sun City. Please be sure and vote, and I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, well. Next up is Alan Lanevsky.
Thanks, Rich. I'm Alan Lanevsky, and I'm running for the board because I think Sun City is a fantastic place to live, and I'm really glad to be here. I, my wife, and our dog, Belle, moved here about 3 years ago after studying Sun City, and it's exceeded my expectations, which were very, very high. We are emerging from a pandemic, and we face numerous challenges that have to be met. And to do that, we have to work together. And I would urge everybody to vote for people who can work together. Otherwise, we will not be able to meet the challenges ahead of us. As an administrative law judge, I work with people of diverse backgrounds who are in very contentious situations, such as custody battles, type of medical care they would get, type of in-home services they would get, and adoptive assistance that they would get. And most of those cases that came before me, and when I was an attorney also, most cases, the vast majority of them settled, even though they were highly contested. And that was because we treated everybody with respect, including the attorneys and the parties. We listened to everybody carefully to what they want and why they wanted it, and we came to common sense solutions, and that's what's needed today. I belong to many clubs, including dance clubs, the computer club. I'm a member of the Long Range Planning Committee, which is looking at the long-range needs of Sun City. We have many amenities, and I use a number of them, including the fitness centers, the golf courses, and I used to use the bowling facilities until recently when I can't do that anymore. What I'm asking for to happen is for you to vote for me because we have to meet the challenges, including keeping assessments low, the property in good shape, and have a plan for the future. So again, I'm asking you to vote for me, but whoever you vote for people who can work together and come to common sense solutions so that we can move forward. Otherwise, we have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Next up is Frank Thorwald. Frank?
My name's Frank Thorwald, and I've lived in Sun City full-time since 2010. I used to have a home in the White Mountains. We moved down there in 2008 down here, and then I went back and forth for about 1.5 years trying to get that property sold. When I decided I wanted to run for the board, my key concern was what amount of time do I have? Do I have the time to devote to this board and do a good job? Because I believe when you go after something or you work on something, you should give it your all, not just a half approach. And I adjusted my schedules so that I have all the time that I need to do that. Right now, I'm missing a meeting that I have my administrator working on. It just takes good coordination, which I'm very good at. I did that for the President of the United States for many years, former president. I've worked in corporations at the highest levels, president, CEO, chief operating officer of companies that have just started, of companies that are doing 20 million a month, 19 million a month in sales. I've worked for nonprofits that are just starting and ones that are doing $200 million a year in revenues. I've worked for all types of companies at all sizes. I have the experience and the expertise, and I want to help my community where I live. It's an important thing to me. Part of what motivates me in life is leaving something that I know I've done to help my community, help my nation, and help the country. Please vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Last but not least, Kat Fimmel.
Thank you. First, I would like to thank all of you for being here today and participating in this process, to acknowledge the people that are live streaming, and to also acknowledge the people that will eventually see all of this by video. I've lived in Sun City for almost a decade. It feels strange to me every time I say that because it seems like I just got here yesterday. I came to Sun City for the amenities, the neighborly feel, and the self-governance. And so far, with few exceptions, I've been very satisfied with my decision. I love Sun City. I think it's a great place to live, and I plan to be here for a while, which is why I'm running for the board, because although we've had a good history over the past 60 years, I want to make sure our history for the next 60 years is just as good. I'm interested in things that are forward-thinking, which is why I'm on the Long Range Planning Committee and on the New Technology Committee. I'm interested in having a community that is safe, affordable, and I'd like it to be the community of choice for the next generation that is coming here, hopefully. It would be a privilege to serve on this board. In terms of my experience, I have 27 plus years with the Department of Veterans Affairs, where I held a position of public trust. What does that mean? That means I spent the taxpayer dollars wisely and prudently and did the best for America's veterans. I hope that you will give me your support, but more importantly, I hope that you will give me your vote. I thank you.
Thank you, Kat. I'll ask the first question, and then we'll open it up to folks on the floor and the folks from YouTube. Candidates, if you could accomplish only one thing during your term on this board, what would it be? And we'll start out with John Nowakowski.
One thing? Okay, that's pretty simple. Well, we changed the bylaws to allow the members that if they disagree with the board and the RCSC, to change it to a referendum process that's workable for the members, not 3,000 plus signatures to be able to only be completed outside of RCS property and board permission to run a referendum against the board. Sorry, that doesn't make sense to me, and that doesn't make sense for us to be able to be members in good standing. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up is Stella Van Ness. And candidates, if you need to have the question repeated, just let me know. Stella?
Can you repeat the question?
This is how it's going to be. Huh?
Yeah?
If you could accomplish only one thing during your term on the board, what would it be?
I think the first and foremost, what I would look to accomplish is the change of Board Policy 32. Board Policy 32 is the general manager's job description. And one of the things I would like to see happen is I would like to see the general manager's job description based on data and the ability for benchmarks within the parameters of that job. We have a new general manager coming on, and the job description, or Board Policy 32, is very vague. It doesn't give you benchmarks or a way to collect data. I was on the board in 2019 when that policy was changed. I also made a motion at that time for the policy to be reverted back to the way it was before, and I was outvoted. I would really like to see that policy changed back so that we have benchmarks in which we can evaluate a new general manager and be able to collect data on an ongoing basis as to what's happening. I would also like to see better preventive maintenance programs implemented. While I was on the board, we had a significant cost item in which we had it for 5 years. And after 5 years, I asked the question, who's been doing the preventive maintenance and what preventive maintenance has been done? I found out at that time that no preventive maintenance had been done at all on a very significant item that we paid a lot of money for. It is now having preventive maintenance done. We now are getting reports on it, the board is getting reports on it, and they're following up on it and correcting the things that were wrong. I would like to be able to work more to do that type of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Alan Linevsky.
Thank you. That's a very good question. And as I look around, I believe that most members like Sun City and enjoy Sun City. That's because of the amenities we have, the golf courses we have, the swimming pools we have, the pickleball courts we have. In order to keep those things and keep them strong, we have to have strong finances. So I'd be concentrating on the financial well-being of Sun City, along with looking at the documents of the corporation. We have a $100 million corporation with budgets exceeding $20 million a year. We have mandates coming from the state that are going to spend a large amount of that. In order to keep this place as good as it is and improve it, we have to make sure we have the financing to do that and the budget decisions to do that, and that's what I'm going to concentrate on. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Next up is Frank Thorwald. Frank?
Community relations, I believe, are a very important thing, how we talk to each other, how we know what's going on. If the board doesn't communicate to the members and the members don't communicate well, it's always going to be a problem. We need these kinds of things to know where we're going to go in the future, to have what the board members need and what they'll have in the future. Otherwise, we're going to have loss of property values. We have to have the finances to be able to do things. The interest rates we have now, the conservative investments are so conservative, we have a very low income, lower than most people would get in a bank, and that does not serve this community well. We need to have a full review of our financial investments and know how to make those work better for us. And we need to look at how we can reduce costs as well on items that are coming up, high-ticket items, from the lake to the golf courses. And then how we can look at alternate ideas to solve those problems. I think those are the key issues, along with, again, how we work together. I think everything everybody else has brought up is very important. We have a whole variety of things, not just one thing we need to solve. And we have to look at all of them, and we have to work together to be able to accomplish them for the future.
Thank you, Frank. Next up is Kat Fimmel. Kat?
Well, you asked for one thing, so a little bit of what Frank just said, but I want to rephrase it differently. As far as I'm concerned, we are all in this together. And I would like that to be the approach that we take. We need to work together to build the future. That's my mantra. Making decisions based exclusively on facts and data. What does the data show? And we need to follow along. Too often we make decisions that further down the road come back to, use the expression, bite us. And we need to get it all together and know what direction that we're going in. So I'm anxious to work with the board members, but I'm just as anxious to work with my neighbors to take us into the future. I hope I don't bore you with that concept of taking us into the future, but that's why I'm here, and that's what's important to me. I want to see this be the best of all.
Thank you, Kat. Karen McAdam.
I think I'd like to piggyback on what Frank said with respect to community relations and say I think the most important thing that the board needs to do, the new board that's constituted in 2022, is to restore trust. At a recent board meeting, somebody came up and asked the board a question, is there anything from this year at all that you regret? And I thought it was just really interesting considering the backlash that's been unleashed and kind of centered around my person, that the only thing that a board member could say was, oh, we haven't done a real good job with data collection. I think the issue is much deeper than that. There were many times early this year when I was corresponding with our general manager, and I said to Jan, I said, you know, we have wonderful assets, we have wonderful amenities, but the most important resource that we have as a board and as a management team is the trust of our constituents. And I think that a lot needs to be done. We need to stop lying. We need to stop being non-transparent. We need to open ourselves up for listening, for hearing, for desiring to hear from our members. And I think that there just needs to be a cultural change. And I think that's the most important thing facing us in the new year.
Thank you, Karen. At this time, we'll open up the podium. If you have a question for the candidates, remember, this will be asked of all of the candidates. Please approach the podium. Come on up, sir.
Okay. I've lived in Sun City since 1960. I was one of the hidden grandchildren by my grandmother. She lived on Alabama Avenue, right down the street from the church, and we used to go to potluck dinners. So I've watched Sun City grow. Everything on the other side of Grand Avenue. I was at Boswell Hospital's introduction. I was there when Lakeview Center first opened, because they wouldn't let my kid in because he was under 4 years old. So I've been in Sun City and I've watched everything. I'll tell you, I was at the last two meetings, the September meetings, and it was a joke. I live in a community where my HOA doesn't do a thing for us.
Do you have a question for the candidates, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
The candidates have very generic ideas, all except for a few. Karen, John, I'm not going to name, that's just basically who I see that really want to help. You need to be transparent. Not one person has said we are going to be transparent.
Sir, what is your question, please?
My question is, are you going to allow the Sun City residents the transparency that the board has by itself, that they will come back once you're a candidate and let the residents know that we're not kept in the dark?
Let me make sure I have this right, okay?
Yes.
Are you going to allow transparency from the board to the members? Is that close enough?
Check. That's
Okay. Thank you, sir.
bottom line.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Starting us off this time around will be Stella Van Ness.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you for that question. To be honest with you, I feel strongly and listened to some of the board members recently when they talked about possibly moving back to the member exchanges. The member exchanges that we used to have prior to, I believe, the beginning of 2019 or around that time, 2019, we had member exchanges in which the members could come up, they could ask questions, they could talk to the board, they could get answers, and all of the board sat there and listened. What we did afterwards is we documented those questions, and we got together afterwards and discussed those questions. We formulated answers, and transparency was what we did when we responded, and we responded to all of those questions back to the membership. I would like to see those board member exchanges implemented again so that we can actually do one-on-one with the members. The members have more time to discuss things with us, and we can answer the questions and have more time to talk to the members as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Next is Alan Lanevsky.
Thanks for the question. The answer simply is yes, I am for transparency. I have worked as a deputy county counsel in Imperial County, California, where it was necessary to have transparency due to the governmental rules and regulations and laws. I have no problem with that. I think we need to use technology to make sure that all the documents that are pertinent are out there so that people can respond to them. I also, just a second, we're getting feedback. Rich?
That's me.
Okay.
Sorry.
I also have said to people as I'm talking to them that if I'm elected to the board, I want to be open. And what that means, and I've done this in every position that I've been in throughout my 40-year career, I want people to talk to me, whether they agree with me or disagree with me. The only way that problems come to attention is to be told. And if somebody disagrees with me, I don't have a problem with that. I've been in law for 40 years, and that's what occurs. I've also been a chair of many commissions, including a planning commission, a substance prevention commission, and others. And you have to be transparent. People have to know what's happening. They have to know why it's happening. So the simple answer is yes, I will be transparent, and I urge the board to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Next up is Frank Thorwald. Frank?
Thank you. Transparency is part of what I was trying to say when I talked about communications, public relations, working together in the initial statement. It's very important. If we don't all communicate and we don't all see the same things, how can we ever come to the same conclusions or a conclusion that even makes any sense whatsoever? Yes, I'm for that. I think it's a key thing that we need to do in any decision process. It's not only just communicating between us, but if we're going to build something or we're going to tear something down or whatever we do, if we don't have that communications, we don't know what people want to do, it can't be done properly.
Thank you, Frank. Kat Fimmel.
Thank you. Am I for transparency? Yes. When you work for the government and you hold a position of public trust, which, by the way, this board position is a position of public trust, you not only have to be transparent, you have to be accountable. And when I began running this go-around, I put out an email for people to reach out to me, and they have. And I have responded, I assure you, to every one of them. And I will bring some of their ideas forth to some of the committees that I'm on. So yes, I vote for transparency and I vote for accountability. We need to be clear about who we are and where we're coming from, and I don't have a problem with that.
Thank you, Kat. Next up is Karen McAdam.
So there are obviously limits to transparency as well. There are certain things that can't be made public, and I think we all are aware of that fact. But I thought it might be good to just bring up one anecdotal piece, something that we saw happen here at the board this year that I thought was a little bit disconcerting, and that was that the Long Range Planning Committee had determined that it was very important to poll the community in order to gather information about what the community does think. They put a lot of effort into trying to make sure that they created a good survey tool, that it represented the proper age brackets, and put a lot of hard work into putting that together. Presented it, normally when a board standing committee brings something to the board, it comes as a seconded motion that should normally be simply accepted by the board because the board has delegated the work of that to that committee. And the board shot it down. And I was quite puzzled by that. And I wonder if that isn't maybe a reflection of how, up until this point, transparency might be praised as a general good, but torpedoed in the actual realities of governance. So yes, I'm in favor of transparency.
Thank you, Karen. John Nowakowski.
Well, transparency is an interesting subject matter. Let's see, we've put a lot of effort into having social media and media concerns. What do we have here? 120 people? I don't know how many are online watching, but out of 40,000 residents, we probably have less than 500 looking at this. Is it sad? Yeah, I think so. Most of the time, the people that show up at board meetings are the ones that have an issue or want something accomplished. Otherwise, we used to call them the silent majority. I don't know what we call them anymore, but nobody shows up. You know, when we talk about transparency of the RCSC, in 2008, there were no rules on how a member could request any information from the corporation. Right now, there's a whole page of rules on how to get permission to get any information from the corporation, including getting the board permission to give you permission to look at stuff that the RCSC and the corporation do. Sorry, I have an objection to that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Our first YouTube question: has the RCSC IT department been able to bring Sun City into the 21st century with technology, in your opinion? We're going to start with Alan Lanevsky.
My understanding from talking to numerous people as I've been campaigning is the answer would be no. We need to improve our technology, and I would leave that to the IT people, but give a directive to the staff to improve our technology to make it more state-of-the-art. I also think we can do things that might be helpful as far as increasing member participation in some of the things that are going on. For instance, esports and computer games are out there. We might want to get involved with that as a recreational activity. So I think the RCSC is now ready and willing to move into more technology. I would urge them to do so, and they have a technology committee. I believe Kat's a member of it. So the answer is we have to do better.
Thank you, Alan. Frank Thorwald.
The technology is there. The capabilities are there as what's going on today, and it's going out to the YouTube group. However, more can be implemented. Better use of the existing technology can be used to improve that communications, and that's part of it, reaching out to everybody, all the residents we have, all the members we have. We need to get everybody involved, and that technology needs to be used to do that. We need to tell people what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, and get involvement that way. It's not just meetings in person anymore. We can do that regularly. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Kat Fimmel.
I'm not sure I can do this in 2 minutes. The IT team for the RCSC is the RCSC's IT team. I'll leave that at that. We were asked recently by a member why Sun City Grand can do Zoom meetings, but we don't. Let's do a little bit of brief history. Sun City Grand was built in the late 90s, early 2000s. They knew what their members wanted, and they built in the infrastructure. I'll end that. Let's go back to our community, which was built in 1960, the pre-computer age. So the first houses that were built here, there were no computers. In the 1970s, when those houses were being built, we began to understand the computer age, but the computers that we understood were Sparivacs, and they were the size of a house. They weren't for personal use. They were for business, research. So they didn't lay an infrastructure here for technology. We got telephone lines, sewer lines, water lines, telephone lines, but no infrastructure for technology. we have a need here for technology, and I think the IT team for the RCSC has done a good job of having some internet in our facilities. The Technology Committee, which has made no recommendations to anybody, we're on our 4th meeting, but in our first meeting said that we all need to agree, and we did, that the basic minimum standard would be high-speed internet. Now, this committee is just starting its work. It has over, we call them products, but they're actually, you would call them issues, that we need to look into.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Kat.
Thank you.
Next up is Karen McAdam.
So there have been some good improvements in technology, even in the 9 years that I've lived in Sun City. It used to be that at Easter time, when your kids came to visit you and you wanted to get a guest pass at the pool, you would stand in line while the card was filled out by hand by the facility attendant. And there might be 5 or 6 people in front of you, and each card took 3 or 4 minutes to fill out. And today you can go onto the RCSC website and click on the pass at the bottom and fill out all the information at home and print out a pass that allows your guests to visit the facilities. That's nice. It's good progress, and I think that I don't want to belittle the things that have happened. We are able to use Wi-Fi when we're at RCSC properties. I think that as we look at embracing a greater degree of technology, the biggest question is going to be, how do we balance the good that technology can bring with the evil that it can also bring? And there is going to have to be some serious conversations about how do we balance what technology is able to track with respect to people's privacy and their right to private data. I think those will be some of the questions that we'll have to face that are of a little bit more ideological bent than simply the technological one.
Thank you, Karen. Next up is John Nowakowski.
Technology is, no matter what I buy today, it's outdated by next week. So, we have a committee that's been working with, we have a paid staff that is working on it. And my position as a board member would be, I'll let the people that know how to do that. That's why we hired them and put them there. If they're not doing their job, then we remove them and put somebody else in that knows how to do that. I am not a micromanager. I don't believe in micromanaging how RCSC should do their technology. We have paid people to do that. Either let them do their job or get rid of them. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Stella Van Ness.
Thank you, Rich. And thank you, whoever asked this question. In relationship to technology for RCSC, progress has been made, but we have a ways to go, quite a ways to go. Pat is a member of the Technologies Committee, as well as numerous other very intelligent people. I have sat in and listened to them discuss the different products or issues, as we would call them, that they feel we're facing today. These people are vastly intelligent. They have more to contribute than you can imagine. And there are numerous other people here in Sun City who also have a lot to contribute to Sun City as a whole. The Technologies Committee is very progressive thinking. And that's what we need, is we need people who are progressive thinking in relationship to the technology. I would encourage the Technologies Committee to continue with what they're doing, and I would support the Technologies Committee because we are quite a ways behind where we need to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. The podium is open. Who would like to ask a question, please?
I don't know. I guess you can hear me all right?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. Excuse me. I'd like to read an excerpt from the article, and I do have a question, Rich. It's coming. So I'd like to read an excerpt from the Articles of Incorporation and then a couple of statements from published YouTube RCSC accounts. I would then like to ask each of you to respond to my question with just a yes or no answer. If you feel that you cannot answer with a simple yes or no, please just pass on the question. Thank you. The restated Articles of Incorporation, December of 1990, amended in November of 2003, Article 3 state, the general nature of the business in which the corporation is engaged is as follows: to do anything and everything lawfully necessary in the interest of the members of the corporation. At the RCSC June 15th candidate information meeting run by Director Hofer, he was asked to explain fiduciary duty. He said, "You have a fiduciary responsibility to the corporation. You have to do what you need to do to protect the assets of the corporation. You're not acting in the best interest for yourself. You're not acting in the best interest of the members." He went on to say that the mission statement of the board was that the corporation do anything we can do to help the members. My question, do you agree with Director Hofer's statement after hearing what the Articles of Incorporation say?
Okay, thank you very much. And we will start with Frank Thorwald.
I think if I understood that question correctly, after reading the corporations, and my understanding of what Mr. Hofer said, he paraphrased, was that, and I know you're asking for a yes or no. I can't, there is no way to give you a yes or no on any question. I think that's an impossibility. But I think Mr. Hofer stated it correctly, yes.
Thank you, Frank. Next up, Kat Fimmel.
Yeah, yes or no answer isn't easy, but if you're elected to the board, you're going to take an oath that says you're going to do what you can to protect the corporation. That's important, because if the corporation fails, then our community as we know it will fail. That's why that is so important. But yes, I'll take an oath too.
Thank you, Kat. Karen McAdam.
I think I addressed this in my opening comments today. The corporation is only valuable inasmuch as it serves the purpose to which it was established. For that reason, I disagree with Mr. Hofer.
Thank you, Karen. John Nowakowski.
The statement there was the board members have a fiduciary requirement to the RCSC. And the RCSC has a fiduciary requirement to the members. So with the statement that Mr. Hofer said, I have to disagree.
Thank you, John. Stella Van Ness.
Yes, I can follow directions.
Thank you, Stella. And Alan Linevsky.
I have been an attorney for corporations. I have drafted the documents that incorporated corporations. I have advised corporations, and the membership, the duty of the director is a fiduciary duty to the corporation. And I could spend 5 hours telling you about that, but I'm not going to. The bottom line is they're interrelated. For the corporation to succeed, you have to have directors who are willing to help it succeed and have a duty to it. But because the purpose of that corporation is social and recreational activities, its job is to make sure that Sun City is run in such a way that the members benefit. And as a result, I would say the question has, well, understanding why the question is being asked, it's a misleading question, because the duty of the corporation, the purpose of the corporation, is to help the membership as a whole. So if you're doing your fiduciary duty to the corporation, you're helping the membership as a whole. And that's my answer.
Thank you, Alan. We go back to YouTube for our next question. As a Board of Director member, how would you settle the issue whether golf and golf courses must be self-sufficient, as some members believe? This came up at the last board meeting. And we'll start with Kat Fimmel.
When Del Webb and Meeker were building this community, they designed the community as a whole to be self-sufficient. And when there was not an ability to be self-sufficient because there were no funds, they put in increases to the assessments to ensure, for example, Sun Bowl had a $2 assessment into perpetuity for maintenance purposes. So the intent, I'm sure, was for golf to be self-sustaining. And in fact, in the last 2 years, as a result of the pandemic, it's actually turned a profit. Now, am I happy that golf is having to be subsidized? I'd like it to be self-sufficient, but it's not. But it is one of the top 3 amenities in this community, and I'm not sure we can let it fail. And now the new people are coming, they play a game called fling golf. We're going to have to find a way for them to do that. Maybe that will help subsidize golf. I'd like it to be self-sufficient.
Thank you, Kat. Karen McAdam.
So there are 3 private golf courses in Sun City, and I think one of the key differences is that when ADWR comes along and says you have to reduce the amount of turf that's being irrigated, they don't have a PIF fund that they can go to in order to accomplish that task. They have to make sure that the fees that they charge are enough to not only handle normal operation costs, but also their capital improvements. I think that here in Sun City, we're running into a situation where we just don't know the degree that to which we're subsidizing golf. It's fine with me to subsidize golf. My understanding is that Sun City West has made a very conscious decision to do that, but the members do that on an informed basis. They understand what they are paying in order to subsidize a golf program that isn't able to be self-sustaining. And for that reason, I think it is important for the membership to be given accurate data, accurate information, accurate historical budgets so that we understand the degree to which golf is being subsidized and that we understand what the opportunity cost of doing that is. When we choose to direct money towards golf courses, what are we choosing not to direct money towards? And those kind of decisions are ones that members should be part of making. So I think to answer the question, yes, we want to move towards as much self-sustainment as is possible, but to the degree that it's not, we simply need to do it with our eyes open and with an understanding of how much and to what degree we are actually subsidizing golf.
Thank you, Karen. Next up is John Nowakowski.
Interesting question. Do we subsidize lawn bowling? Do we subsidize tennis? Do we subsidize pickleball? Those are all the amenities. Do we subsidize bowling? They have 2 whole buildings, parts of buildings. Those are the amenities that the community has, that the RC has the responsibility to control, including the golf courses. If we're going to say that golf should be self-sufficient, should pickleball be self-sufficient? Should the community shops be self-sufficient? Should the pools be self-sufficient? At what point do you say, wait a minute, those are the amenities of this community. We all live in this community, whether or not we use those, and to what extent do we subsidize them? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I have not seen enough data on the accounting and on the numbers to make an intelligent decision on whether or not that should happen. If we're doing the robbing Peter to pay Paul principle, then yeah, I have an issue with that. If we're doing it to make sure that the community is the best community that we have with the amenities that we all want, and I say then we should subsidize it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up is Stella Van Ness.
Thank you very much, and once again, thank you to the person who asked this question. I did a little research myself, and I called all of the golf courses, both within Sun City and outside of Sun City, as well as in Sun City West, Sun City Grand, and the private golf courses here. And I did a comparison of the cost to play a round of golf, in addition to I researched the amount of a yearly pass with surcharges and without surcharges. And I will tell you that Sun City is the most cost-effective place to play golf in this area, bar none. I did have a discussion with Brian Dupu, who is the director of Golf and Grounds, and he informed me that Golf Now, if you look on Golf Now, we are competitive with the rest of them. As a matter of fact, sometimes our charges are a little bit higher. Whether that's true or not, I really don't know, because I didn't research Golf Now. I researched the actual golf courses and what their charges were in comparison to what our published charges were. Do I feel that golf should be self-sufficient? You know, I don't really know all of the data right now in regards to the finances. And I would want to know all of that data in regards to the financials before I came out and said that golf is not self-sustaining. I'm not sure right now whether it is or not, because we don't get the detailed information in regards to the finances, and I would like to see that before I make a decision that golf is not self-sustaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Next up is Alan Lenevsky.
Thank you. My understanding is that the documents regarding the golf course say it is the intent to make golf self-sufficient. And I certainly would have that intention. Having said that, golf is a large part of this community, as is bowling, as is pickleball, as is swimming. I would have to look at the exact budget and look at ways that we could possibly make it self-sustaining if it's not. Having said that also, I have talked to the staff of Sun City, and I have been told, and I believe it, that golf is self-sufficient over the last 2 years due to the COVID pandemic. We don't know that it won't be self-sufficient in the future. The other thing is, when does it have to be self-sufficient? I was at the work study of the board, and it appears that we may have to spend $23 million in the near future because of the mandates being forced by the government, the water district, to make some changes in the golf courses. We don't know what the long-term effect of that is as far as cost. We don't know if it's going to reduce the water, and if so, how much. We don't know if it's going to reduce the play because the golf courses have been reduced in turf. So yeah, my intent would be to make them self-sufficient, but if we can't do that, I'm not about to destroy a major amenity, a major thing that people do here, because it's not. As I said, Sun City is a great place to live. People are enjoying themselves. I understand there are some people who are upset at a number of things, but when you look overall at this community, golf helps make it what it is today, and I'm not about to destroy it. So if I had to subsidize it to a reasonable amount, I would. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Next is Frank Thorwald.
The entire community, I believe in looking at statistics and data. We need to change how some of that data is collected in a variety of these areas, including in golf, so you can determine whether it's self-sufficient or not self-sufficient. It's important to know there's other creative ways that we might be able to go after making things more sufficient or saving money. I agree with what the others have said. It isn't always that it's self-sufficient to do it. I mean, this is a community. This whole community is, and what we have here is what keeps the values of our homes up. We need to keep that and keep it growing. But part of this statistics, there's other ways to look at things, creative ways. If you characterize things in one way, you may get something from the federal government or state governments in the way of other revenue projects or money coming in to be able to subsidize some of these projects and reduce those costs. And I've been talking to other the board members here and some of the people at the rec center about how we might be able to do that and work in other ways. The answer to your question in my mind is if it has to be subsidized, it needs to be. But we want to keep that as low as possible. I would prefer it if they're all self-sustaining and could work, but that's not always possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Well, we've reached the midway point in our forum this afternoon, and it's time for our lightning round. So before the candidates came in, or as they were coming in, they each drew a number. That number corresponds to a question. I have not seen the numbers that they have drawn, and they have not seen the questions that it corresponds to. So we're at total randomness as far as this is concerned. We're going to start with Karen McAdam. Karen, if you would, what number did you draw today? I'm sorry?
2.
Number 2. Well, this is kind of going into something that was asked earlier today, but what is the difference between the Articles of Incorporation state are the duties of the corporation and what the duties of the Board of Directors are as outlined in the bylaws?
Ooh, that's a big question. So we've actually touched on the Articles of Incorporation and the idea that they're supposed to do anything and everything legally possible in the interest of the membership. Okay, the duties of the Board of Directors is a little bit different from that. One of the biggest duties that the board has is to hire and to supervise, to monitor and evaluate the CEO. That would be one of the prime responsibilities. The board is also expected to issue statements that incorporate its values, and we call those policies. At least that's what I believe policies are supposed to be. So that would be a responsibility of the board. So you're talking about the board itself and not individual members, Rich, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Right. And finally, I would say that it's the oversight responsibility of the board to make sure that management is performing successfully on behalf of the membership,
Okay.
which involves a regular monitoring of each of the end statements that are given by the board to management to achieve.
Excellent. I will say that Article 3 does state, as was pointed out earlier, what the duties of the corporation are. That does differ a little bit than what the bylaws say in Article 5, Section 6, which are the duties of the actual board. The board operates differently than the corporation, but you answered that very well. Thank you very much for that. Next up, John, what number did you draw?
7.
Number 7, explain the difference between the role of the Board of Directors and the role of management.
The Board of Directors actually has only one employee. I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Certainly. Explain the difference between the role of the Board of Directors and the role of management.
Okay. If the Board of Directors, again, the Board of Directors has basically one employee. That's it. The rest of the employees work or are under that head person. The employees should be responsible to the corporation and to the members in making sure that their job is done to the best of their ability. The Board of Directors better be the supervising group that gives the policy and makes sure that everyone is moving in a direction that the Board of Directors wants to move in. We should be the leaders, the thinkers, the look at 10 years from now and see where we're going to be and head to that goal. And then give that direction to the employees and say, okay, go ahead and implement this. The Board of Directors should not be the micromanagers of anything within the corporation or within the facilities. If we are, or if anyone is, we're losing, we've gone from being productive to being micromanagers, which never leads anywhere good into anything.
I'd say you hit that one pretty well right out of the ballpark. Next up, Stella Van Ness. What number do we have, Stella?
Number 1.
Number 1. Wow. Name the 3 primary duties of a member of the Board of Directors.
3 primary duties of a member of the Board of Directors would be to oversee the general manager, make board policy, and I guess taking a coffee break isn't in there, is it? I have totally lost the third one, and I know it, but.
I know you know it too,
Yeah.
actually. It is to employ the general manager to establish, change, and add or delete board policies and bylaws, and to have the fiduciary responsibility of the corporation, protect the assets of the corporation. Not bad, not bad.
You
It's
know,
all
I
right.
wanted coffee.
Like
I'm
I said,
tired.
I don't expect everybody to know everything on this. This is years and years and years of doing this stuff. Next up, we go to Mr. Linefsky.
Number 6.
Number 6. And you're an attorney, huh? RCSC is a 501c4 corporation. How do you explain that to the members?
It's basically a social organization, and its main goal is to do recreation. But if you look at the if you look at the articles of incorporation, which basically every article of incorporation does, is it says we can do anything that's legal. That's usually a throwaway line in it, and it is. But basically, it's a social organization for the benefit of the members, and it's doing recreation, but again, it has powers far beyond that.
And one of the things I was kind of looking for is that it is a not-for-profit as well.
Right.
Okay, very good. Frank Thorwald, what number did you get?
53.
53.
Number 4.
If it was going to be 57, we would have had Hines or something. Yeah, number 4. Okay, thank you, Frank. What do you think the best way is for the RCSC to communicate to its members?
I think I've talked about that already. Social media, direct email, meetings like this are by far the better way to get communications out and talk about what's needed, what's going on, and how things can be done. I think that that's the way to push it out. The way to bring it back in is through email and correspondence that way, as well as public meetings.
Thank you. And finally, Kat,
Let's hope it's lucky number 3.
lucky number who?
3.
3, okay. Lucky number 3. You get a yes or no type of question. Is it legal, according to the Articles of Incorporation, for the board to appoint a treasurer that is not a member of the board?
No, the treasurer is a member of the board. The treasurer can have an assist who is not necessarily a member of the board, but the treasurer is a member of the board.
And that is absolutely correct. Nice job. Big, deep breath. Very good. I got to tell you, I want everybody to give these guys a hand. Those were great answers. They really were. They had no idea the questions that were coming up on this thing, and they all did a very, very fine job, so congratulations with them. Okay, let's get back to the questions from the podium. Who has a question? Please come up. Yes, sir.
My
I don't need your name, sir.
Huh?
I don't need your name, just
Well,
your
you don't
question.
know my name.
No, that's all right.
Well, I do live in Sun City.
Well, I believe you.
So I have a very simple question for these candidates. What is your position and how do you plan on maintaining our annual membership fees at $4.96?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We'll start out with John Nowakowski.
I don't believe that the membership fees will continue to be $4.96. Everything on earth is either backordered or going up in price. So to expect that to remain at $4.96, I think, is an unreal expectation. If the membership wants to keep it at $4.96, I don't have a problem with that. Tell us, the board, what has to be eliminated from the services we provide. Then we can turn around and start cutting back and keeping those dues at $4.96. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next up is Stella Van Ness.
Thank you. I agree with some of what John has said. I think that we need to evaluate the financials and get more detailed information in regards to the financials. In doing that, I think we can go a long ways in assisting senior management to try and keep the annual assessment as low as it is. For how long that's going to happen, no one knows. There's no way to say that we're going to keep the assessments at 496 because life happens. Look at what we've just been through in the past 2 years with COVID. Life happens, things happen. You know, roofs fall in. There's all kinds of stuff that happen that we have to take care of as a corporation. So guaranteeing or saying, yes, I'm going to keep or work to keep the dues at 496, yes, I'm going to do that. But that doesn't mean in the long term where anyone is going to be able to do that. Will we work to that goal? Yes, we will. Work towards keeping the assessments low. However, if you look nationwide, Sun City has the lowest assessments of any other adult retirement community in the nation. So keeping them low, we've done a really good job at that, and I'd like to see it continue. But how we're going to do that, I'm not sure, other than cutting items in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Alan Linevsky.
On my fact sheet that was printed and what I have back in the back of the room, I say one of my goals is to keep assessments low. You know, there's no guarantee that with inflation and all that we'll be able to keep it at 496, but it's certainly my intent to try. In order to do that, you have to look at our investment income and how it's being spent. You have to go back through the budget and basically look at the line items and how we're spending it and whether we're spending it most effectively. That's what I intend to do. I intend to work really, really hard to keep them low, hopefully at 496. But with inflation going at 5% this year, and who knows what it'll be next year, there's no guarantee that that'll happen, but I'll work for trying to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Next up is Frank Thorwald.
Part of the issue, 496, I don't think will be sustainable in the long future. However, we should work as hard as we can to keep it as low as we can for as long as we can. That involves getting the proper statistics, effective utilization of existing facilities, finding alternate income from grants or other kinds of things when we're doing projects. There are those kinds of things out there. Second thing, the finances. If we're only making 1.5% on our investment over a 10-year period, let's say we invest $25 million approximately. In a 10-year period, at 1.5%, we'll bring in about $4 million. At 5%, we'll bring in about $15 million. That makes a big difference in what you can do and what you can't do, and whether your assessments are going to be able to remain the same. Those are ways we can do to reduce costs. Are there other ways, and the ways we can bring other money in? How do we make ourselves more efficient and effective and creative is the answer to being able to keep those dues at the lowest possible level as we move forward.
Thank you, Frank. Kat Fimmel.
I'm a facts and data person. I don't want to see anything happening to this assessment fee without supporting documentation. We just completed the finance and budget documents that were approved by the board, and so for the next year, the assessments will not be increasing. I'm very heartened that the new general manager is working with his directors to look at where they can make efficiencies in their organizations. That's what I'd like to see happen first. I would only want to see this assessment increased as a last resort.
Thank you, Kat. Karen McAdam.
So I actually think that this is primarily a cultural issue, and it's pretty baked into the DNA of Sun City. And just the fact that you asked this question, I think, is a reflection of the fact that that is a very, very high value. So when a board instructs a management team what difference they're supposed to make in this world, who they're supposed to make that difference for, and at what cost they're willing to do that, I think that number is not just a 3-digit number. It's often presented as a percentage, for instance. So we want to be at least 50% lower than the average age-restricted community in the state of Arizona or in the United States. And I would like to say this, and that is, when I talk to people about Sun City, I often use the phrase, it is the best deal on the planet. And I would just tip my hat to former boards, to former management teams, current management teams that have done a really, really remarkable job of providing Sun City with wonderful amenities at a very reasonable cost. And I think that that's the cultural part of that has to stay there. There has to be an ongoing push from the membership to say this is really important to us. And that gets reflected in directions from the board to the management team.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Our next question comes from YouTube. At the last Board of Directors meeting, there was a motion to increase the PIF to $4,000. What data should be looked at before a PIF increase is required? And we'll start that one out with Stella Van Ness.
Again? Okay. I believe that we need to look at what's on the long-range plan and what we're looking at doing in the near future as well as out 5 and 10 years from now to determine whether or not we actually need to increase the PIF. What are going to be our expenses? Do we know what ADWR is going to cost us? No, we don't. We have no idea yet what the cost is actually going to be. Do we know the bottom line as to how much the lake is going to cost? No, we don't. We have a guesstimate. I think we need to look at more sound data and more information financially in order to back up any increase in the PIF. I agree with the board voting down the increase to $4,000 on the PIF because I don't believe any of them, including the person who made the motion, I don't believe they have the data to support the increase in the PIF. And that's kind of how I feel about it.
Thank you, Stella. Next up, Ellen Lenevsky.
I would have voted against the increase in the PIF that was brought here at this time. In order to determine whether we need an increase in the PIF, first of all, we need to know what our future expenses are and what we're trying to accomplish, what our goals are, and how we intend to do it. We have to look at the cost of what it's going to cost to do buildings and those kind of things in the future. At this point, we have approximately $24 million in the PIF, which I believe about 12 million of it are investments. Some of what's going to affect whether we have to increase it or we can keep it the same is what we will be forced to do regarding water. So before we increase the PIF, I need to know whether we're going to have 5 years, 10 years, 15 years to accomplish what we're going to be mandated to do. So until we have the data of what has been spent, how it has been spent, whether it's been spent effectively, how our bidding processes go, how we pick contractors, and all those things have to be reviewed before I'd even consider increasing the PIF. So at this time, we have a lot of work to do, and I'd keep it the same at this time.
Thank you, Ellen. Frank Thorwald.
I would agree with our previous speaker, Alan, on what he said about that, but I would add a few other things, too. We have to look at data. We have to have good data. How the data is collected is very important. We have to look at the future, what people are going to want tomorrow, next year, 10 and 15 years from now. What is trending, what's coming in. That all adds up to what we're going to be needing, where we're going to be expending money, as well as just as the lake and the golf courses. Other ways to reduce those costs. As I mentioned, if we don't look at other ways to reduce costs, we have a pre-gone conclusion on what's going to happen. The internet right now, as was mentioned earlier, who would have thought about that in 1960? We have cable, we have telephone internet, we have fiber optics in some of the area, we have wireless, we're getting G5. How does that all blend into the high-speed internet that we're going to be getting for the rec centers? How does that apply to the overall community? All these factors fit in. It's a myriad of things, not just one thing.
Thank you, Frank. Kat Demmel.
All of that and more. The PIF is a little bit like a puzzle. First, you have to identify all the pieces, and then you have to figure out how they go together and what can be done when and still maintain our budgeting structure. And as always, no increases without supporting data. No increases for increase sake. We have to be accountable to you. That's only fair. It's your money that we're spending. Thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Karen McAdam.
So I think a lot of really good things have been said, and I might just add one little sort of a principle that I learned in parenting. And that was, as my kids were involved in athletics, along with their schooling and so forth, I often encountered parents who said, my daughter's not doing well enough in school, she has to quit participating in synchronized swimming. And what happened? She quit participating in synchronized swimming and allegedly had more time to work on her schoolwork, but her schoolwork didn't improve at all. And I think the principle that I would apply here is that if we're just raising money because we think it's nice to have money to do stuff, it leads to a lot of extravagance sometimes. And sometimes the tighter the budget is and the more we have to turn each penny over before we decide how we're going to spend it, the better we do with it and actually end up being much more efficient in our expenditures. So for that reason, unless there is really compelling data and a really compelling case to say we need to raise the PIF, I think that I would prefer not to do so.
Thank you, Karen. John Nowakowski.
The PIF is an interesting, we call it a PIF, it's a capital improvements fund, basically. Our threshold for capital improvements is 700,000, 750?
It's 300,000.
300, okay, 300,000. One of the things that happens is, as a staff member, if I don't maintain anything, I don't need any maintenance money. But once it fails and it hits that threshold, I can put it into a PIF or capital improvements, draw out of that fund and fix it. That happens quite often. I think our threshold should be a lot higher. That would change some of the thinking that goes on between maintenance and capital improvements. If we have enough money to maintain, then our capital improvements are real capital improvements projects. I'd be willing to bet that the concept of what goes into those projects and how much money we need will change drastically if that threshold changes. Because right now, I'm a good staff member. I don't fix the roof, I don't patch it. I wait for 5 years, let it fall apart. Then it comes out of a different fund. It doesn't come out of my maintenance fund, it comes out of your capital improvements fund. And I have some issues with that kind of thinking. That's why, increase it. If you show me that the need is there for real capital improvements, I'd be willing to look at it and say maybe it's needed. If you're deferring maintenance to make capital improvements pay for it, I really have an objection to that.
Thank you, John. The podium is open. Who would like to come on up? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you feel, hold on a second. Do you feel that GM should be recommending changes to our bylaws, and are you open to reviewing all bylaws changes from the last 15 years and restoring them to how they read if the narrative does not fit today's time?
Okay, hang on a second. Just want to make sure I get this question right, okay? Do you agree that a general manager should be able to recommend bylaw changes? And I'm sorry, what was the second part of that, ma'am?
Are you open to reviewing all bylaw changes from the last 15 years and restoring them to the way they read if they don't fit today's narrative?
Thank you. Okay, does everybody get that?
Yes.
Candidates, everybody got that? Okay. Mr. Linevsky, you're up first.
First of all, the GM works for the board, that's the general manager, and I think that's clear. The general manager certainly can make recommendations, but the board does not have to accept them. and can say no. Regarding looking at the bylaws, I'm not going to say I'm going to look back 15 years or 20 years or 5 years. As I said earlier, my priority upon becoming a member of the board is to start looking at all the documents, including bylaws, policies and procedures, bidding policies, how we pick contractors, and looking at them with my expertise and my common sense and reviewing them to see if changes need to be made. So yes, I'm open to looking at that. I'm open to looking at what they were like before. And we need to look forward, and we need bylaws and policies that further Sun City as a great place to live. So your answer is yes, I'm willing to look at them, and will.
Thank you, Ellen. Frank Thorwald.
I've already been reviewing all of the documents, the policies, the rules, the bylaws, and as we move forward, into some respect, you need to have, for a community like this to be a living document. Times change, things need to be updated and looked at. We always have to keep doing that, and if we don't, we're failing.
Thank you, Frank. Kat Fimmel.
The general manager is the operational branch of the corporation. The board makes policy and sets that down to the general manager. In terms of reviewing, if it will help this community, I more than gladly review. I think if we need to bring something in, we can bring it back in. That might be an easier process, but I have no objection. Anything that will make things better should be done.
Thank you, Kat. Karen McAdam.
So a board's policy is supposed to be, or its policy handbook is supposed to be an expression of the board's values. And I would actually prefer to see our policies look like we charge the senior management of this corporation to create rules for pool usage that provide for a safe and friendly environment in the least restrictive manner possible. And then all of the policies that we have regarding how many inches your pool noodle can extend from your body, what kind of materials your flotation device has to be made out of, and so forth, those things should be removed from the board's purview. What we do is we express a value, and then we ask management to implement those values, and then we control for the rules that the management establishes for that. I've said this before, if you've been watching board meetings, you know that I have refused to vote on questions of what PSI is required in the tires of the golf carts. How many balls are you allowed to play with when you're on the mini golf course? Because I don't believe that that's the proper purview of the board. I think that we really do need to go back to our documents and ask ourselves, how can we create bylaws that are expressions of our values rather than a minute-by-minute involvement in the lives of our members.
Thank you, Karen. John Nowakowski.
If our general manager that the board has put into that position is dictating what bylaws should be changed, then the horse is pushing the cart. We're the ones, the board should be the one that is making that determination. Am I in favor of reviewing them? Absolutely, because I have some very strong objections to what has been changed over time that took the ability of the members to remain active within the organization. I have a real problem with that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And Stella Van Ness.
Thank you, Rich. Do I feel the general manager should make recommendations to our bylaws? I think, yes, he should make recommendations to our bylaws, and the reason for that being is because the general manager of RCSC is in closer touch with the attorneys as well as the lobbyists that work and have a better idea of what laws and changes are coming down. And in order for the corporation to stay within the letter of the law, those recommendations have to come through to the board. So do I think the general manager should make recommendations? Yes, I do. Do I think that the general manager should back up those recommendations with data and facts? Most definitely, I do. Now, the second part of the question, was I open, or are you open to review the documents? Yes, definitely. The documents need to be reviewed on an ongoing basis. They are a dynamic document. They are not something that is stoic and stays as it is. As things change, as time changes, those documents need to change as well. Whether or not I agree with them going back to 15 years ago, to be very honest with you, I don't know what the bylaws said 15 years ago. I would have to do research to find out what the bylaws said 15 years ago. If that was something we were charged with, I would be happy to do the research to find out what the documents said 15 years ago. However, right now, I believe we need to look at the laws of today and the requirements today of the corporation in order to evaluate our bylaws fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. I don't have a YouTube question, so if somebody has a, please come forward, ma'am.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a question, and then I'm going to offer an example, and I'll offer the question again, just for clarity. How do we get to a place that member information is provided to us without coming to a board meeting to ask for it? And my example is that during the last meeting, the board meeting, there were many, many questions on an annual membership meeting. Lots of dates, requirements for agenda items, and rules to follow. So again, the question is, how do we get to the place where this information is provided to members without us coming to ask for it?
Now, can I ask for some clarification?
You bet.
Thank you. Are you speaking specifically about the annual meeting or in general?
In general.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Everybody got that question? Okay, Mr. Lenevsky. Oh, you've already answered that. Frank Thorwald, you're up first.
I think that, and I've looked at that, part of this is those communications that I talked about, expanding the information on the website, expanding the search terms so it's easier to find things. All of those things give the members the ability to spot things and see them. I've gone through the website a number of times, and it's not always easy to find things. You have to know which word do you use, which word do you not use. Do you use a phrase if you're searching for things? That's very important, and I think we need to make that more effective, easier to use, and provide the other data. There's data out there that's there, but if you don't know where to look for it or the right words, you're not going to find it.
Thank you, Frank. Kat Fimmel.
Mr. Thorwald is exactly correct. That's one of the first things the Technology Committee talked about, was the fact that sometimes it can take 17 clicks to get to a piece of information. That is simply too many. So there are some processes that we need to do within the system to make it much easier for members to find this information.
Thank you, Kat. Karen McAdam.
So thank you for asking that question, because that was actually a burning question for me going into that board meeting on Thursday. I would say one thing that I'm very happy about is that when you write to the board or to senior management, you generally get an answer. And I'm pleased about that level of responsiveness. And yet at the same time, when I was asking those questions about how does a membership actually bring business before an annual members meeting, I felt like I was getting roadblocked by a number of people who said, we just follow our bylaws and the articles of incorporation. And I don't know how many times that was said to me. And I said, well, what if the bylaws and the articles of incorporation are silent on the matter? What then? We just follow our bylaws and our articles of incorporation. And I guess that's where I would prefer to see a greater degree of responsiveness. And okay, this might be something brand new that we're going through that we haven't gone through for over 10 years. But if that is the case, there has to be a responsiveness on the part of the board and on the part of management to actually get that information out and say, if you want to bring business before the board, this is the way that you do this. If you want to vote by proxy, this is the way you do this. And I would really be very, very pleased if that would be forthcoming, like tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday.
Thank you. John Nowakowski.
Getting the information out is, there's a legal process and a realistic process. The legal process is once the agenda is posted, we've met the legal process. Unless you go down to the lower level of Lakeview and look at it, probabilities of knowing what's on it are pretty slim. Yes, there is a website, and yes, you can look it up. And I'm sorry, but after 3 clicks, I'm bored, upset, and I want to throw the computer out through the door. So can you make it easier? I'm not sure. People that show up normally have an issue, and they find the methodology to be heard to the board or to whatever group they want to bring an issue to. If everyone is not unhappy, it's very difficult to convince them to go to a board meeting. There's just not that much interest. How do you change that? I don't know. My suggestion would be, let's have some cookies and donuts. Maybe more people will show up. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, John. Stella Van Ness.
Thank you, Rich. And in regards to this question, as I stated before, the Technologies Committee is a new committee, and it is working on exactly those types of issues. How to reach the community, how to do things, how to progress in our technology to be able to have better access to information. And some of you may not remember this, but I remember back in 2016 where we wanted to do videoing of all of the RCSC board meetings. That had never been done before. There was a lot of pushback in regards to videotaping all of the board meetings, and yet here we are. All of our board meetings, even during the pandemic, the committee meetings were all videotaped, and they were all available for all of the members to review, for all of the members to look at, and for all of the members to come back with questions should they choose to do so. It is the same way now. You can look at all of the meetings online, other than the committee meetings now, where you actually have to go and sit in the committee meetings and attend them if you're interested in that, which I'll be honest with you, I sat in all the committee meetings. And you can actually have feedback. There is a give and take. There is information available to you. You just have to make the effort to look for that information and try and find it available. Right now, videoing all of the board meetings as they never did before. It didn't start happening, I believe, until the beginning of 2017. And in doing it now, that's an access. That is a change in the technology. That is moving forward. That is making everything more accessible to the membership. And I think that that's a way of providing additional information. And the
Thank you. Next up is Alan Lanevsky.
That's a good question. Again, I am not an expert in technology, but I do know that I've been frustrated numerous times by trying to get information, not necessarily from Sun City, because I've managed to get that when I've asked for it. But we can talk to the technology people in the IT and figure out if we have the best system at a reasonable cost, which uses keywords. That's one. We have a mailing list that needs to be expanded if people want to be on it for what is occurring. When motions are made on the agenda, we might have a short explanation as to why they're being made, some background. We need to continue to work on things. We need to have quick responses to phone calls. Although I use the computer, I have neighbors who don't. So we have to go back in some ways, because we have a community, many people who are uncomfortable with computers, and find a way to get them information, and that maybe by mailing it, by physically mailing it if they make the request. Those are the kinds of things that we need to do. Those are the kinds of things that I'm open to, but I certainly would consult with the experts to see how we can do more technology-wise. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. We do have the podium open if somebody would like to ask questions. Sir? Ma'am, I don't care. One of you. I'll tell you what, ma'am, we'll get to yours right next, okay? Yes, ma'am.
I'll try to make this very short. My wife and I moved here 6 years ago, and aside from the fact that the excellent facilities and the affordability, one of the main things that impressed me the most was going to an annual meeting of the general manager explaining the budget, where money was spent, and what kind of policies were in effect. She did an excellent job at that time. I'm not familiar with the current general manager, but I would hope that there is an annual meeting that would be extremely helpful in explaining to people the budget, where money is spent, what major projects are occurring. And I think it's vitally important that in the hiring of a general manager, and I would like to have some input as to how that decision is made in hiring a general manager.
Okay, that really isn't a question for the candidates. They really don't have that information at their fingertips. Do you have a question that would relate to them?
Yes. What is the policy for hiring a general manager, and what input does the board of directors have in that procedure?
Okay. Does everybody feel comfortable answering that?
Yeah.
Over here, folks? No, you don't? Okay. Sir, I can answer that for you. The board does hire the general manager, and the board does look at several options at that. Hiring this general manager, I sat on the selection committee. We interviewed 6 candidates after getting like 75 or some ridiculous number of resumes. 6 candidates were interviewed the first time. The whole board came in and interviewed the last 3, and then we selected the current general manager, Mr. Cook. That's how it was done.
Was there any public participation of the membership
No.
in general?
No, because the board hires our only employee. That is our only employee. So I can answer that for you.
You answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, you're next.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I would like to know that since we have 40,000 members or residents in Sun City, can you explain why the quorum is set at 12:50 for voting?
Again, can I answer that for you
Yes.
later? Because that really doesn't affect anything that these guys are running for,
Okay, thank you.
unless you want to reword that. I mean,
No, I just want to know why we've got,
I'm happy to do, see me afterwards, and I'm happy to answer that for you, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. I can give you the answer now. They put together a group of people that actually went through and looked at it. State law says it should be much higher than that. It should be about 3,217, I think, right now, and they felt that was way too high. So and that was done by a group of members and group of board members. It was a combination, and they all came up with the 1250, and that's where it's been ever since. And I'm not sure how long it's been, but it's been a long time. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this year, last year has been kind of a troubling year for the board and the people at large. And so my question is to all the board members, what would you do to bring back respect to the board and make sure that the board brings back or delivers respect to those that approach the microphone?
Okay. Just to make sure I have it right, sir. I don't want you walking away till I have you satisfied. What can be done to improve the respect between the board and the members both ways? Is that correct?
Kind of.
Kind of? Could you clarify for me, please?
What would they do individually to see that the board earns the respect
Okay.
of the people, gains that back again?
Okay.
And what would they do to assure that the board respects the people when they come up to the microphone?
Gotcha.
What's their opinion?
All right. Very good. Let's start with Kat Fimmel.
Well, it might be kind of basic. My parents taught me to respect others, and if I respected others, the chances were good that they would respect me. There is no reason why we can't talk to each other in a civil tone and have a civil discourse. That's part of what self-governance is all about. Much earlier in the day, I said that we are all in this together, and we are. And that's how we should treat each other. This is our community. Its success is important to us, and it's going to be important, hopefully, to draw people in and stay in this community for generations to come. I think it's a simple answer.
Thank you, Kat. Karen McAdam.
This makes me think of one of the three foundational statements that we have. We have a mission statement, a vision statement, and a values statement. And the vision statement says, to serve our community with a friendly and courteous attitude. I realize that sometimes there are differences of opinion and there can be a very honest debate about things, but I would agree with Kat that this is simply a matter of determining that we are going to be friendly and courteous in the way that we act. I think the board has failed to do that this year, and I would like to see that change.
Thank you, Karen. John Nowakowski.
The personal opinion, several ideas that I would like to see implemented by the board. One of them is that we go back, the board does not do two formalized meetings, they do some type of workshop session where the complaints of the residents are not only listened to, but responded to in some fashion. Right now, you have two basic board meetings of the board. Somebody comes in with an issue, nothing happens. It throws discontent into the members. The other issue I have is, another idea is, right now, we are sitting at a stage above you, and so there's an impression that we are better than you, and your impression is, why are they sitting on stage above us? You know, in workshop sessions, my idea is we're all sitting at the same level. We're sitting in a gym, we're sitting down below listening to those ideas. There's no reason for me to be sitting at a dais above the membership that I'm trying to help or work with. That's my personal opinion. So those are some of the very simple matters. And trusting, one of the things that happens is elected officials have a tendency to get thrown into the nest of the days and the dems. And someday I would like to meet all days and dems that cause problems to the world. Because man, I never heard John did something wrong, but days and dems idiots did something wrong. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, John. Stella Van Ness.
Thank you, Rich. And John kind of tied on to what I said previously, that I would like to see us go back to the board member exchanges. At the board member exchanges, we met in Lakeview in the social halls, and we all sat at a table at the same level as all of the members. The members came up to the microphone, they asked their questions, we all responded to them. It was an even exchange. And if we couldn't answer the question, we told them that we didn't know the answer to the question, but we would research it. And we did research it. We got together afterwards, we discussed it, we researched it, we found out what was going on, we found the answer, and we responded to the members. It was called a board member exchange, and that's what it was. We were all on the same level, we all talked to each other. There was no setting up on the stage each time. It was very simple. And I think we received the respect of the membership because we were there, we were willing to talk to them, and we were willing to answer them. And that's what I'd like to see us go back to, as I've already said. As far as the respect from the board, I believe in the old golden rule that my mom and dad beat into me numerous times, and that is do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. And that's what I have tried to do with all of the people of Sun City, because I spend a lot of time talking to them, I spend a lot of time meeting with them, and that's my philosophy. I will treat them as they treat me, or better. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Alan Lenevsky.
okay? I don't think this is an easy question. It's a difficult question, but I think it can be done. And one of the main reasons I'm running for the board is that I want to see the temperatures cooled down so that we can advance together. I would first begin by what I did when I taught college online. I told all the students on day one that they could say pretty much anything they wanted regarding the issues before the class, but they had to treat everybody with respect and dignity. There was no name calling. There was no negative stuff like that. You treated everybody well, and if not, they would be reprimanded for it. I dealt with contentious issues, not only in the 20 years that I was a judge, but the 20 years I was an attorney. And with people literally in the courtroom who most likely despised each other. But again, when I was an attorney and as a judge, I demanded and taught people, spoke to people about no yelling, no screaming, treating everybody with respect. And if that didn't happen, no judge would have put up with it. And as a board, I would make sure that everybody was treated with respect. Furthermore, what has to happen is the board has to be open, as do the people who are up against the board, to open discussions, not necessarily on the microphone, not necessarily repeating the same thing 100 times. But as I've told people as I'm running for this, if you have a problem with what I am doing, please let me know and why. Another way to increase the respect for the board would be for board members, and they do, but other board members, visiting board members, and that happens to go to the clubs. The clubs are a central part of Sun City, and they have to be taken into account. But that's what I would do. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank, or Alan, I'm sorry. And now Frank Thorwald.
I agree with what Alan just said. I've also been going around to all of the clubs and trying to talk to everybody. I haven't made it to everyone, but I'm still going around. But I think communications, as I've mentioned before, is key, but how do you underline those communications? And I think it's the lifelong philosophy that I've had, that how I approach people. Treat people as you want to be treated yourself. And if you do that, you get respect back. And I think all underlining communications has to be done that way.
Thank you, Frank. Well, I look at the clock on the wall, and it shows me that we are just about ready for our closing comments. So what I'm going to do is ask each candidate to take 2 minutes or up to 2 minutes and give us one last pitch why they should be voted for this coming year's Board of Directors. We'll start down here with Karen McAdam.
So I'm just delighted that you're all here today, and I thank you for coming. It signifies what I believe is a key ingredient to a Sun City that is successful today and well into the future. A belief that the people you choose to represent you in this enterprise of self-governance actually matter, that they will perform their duties with integrity and goodwill, that they will not only listen to their constituents, but will actively seek out their voice, and that they will never cease to ask themselves how they can govern the corporation more honestly, more transparently, more carefully. I would like to be a voice for our mission, vision, and value statements. Our mission: to provide the broadest range of recreational and social facilities possible to enhance the active lifestyle and well-being of Sun City residents. Our vision: to serve our community with a friendly and courteous attitude. Our values: with a commitment to quality, service, communication, cooperation, integrity, and fiscal responsibility. A board that is focused on these principles will be a board that serves you well and earns your trust and respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Next up, John Nowakowski.
Closing statement. You've heard some of my ideas as the afternoon went on today. And we have a mission statement. And the mission statement says that RCSC operates the facilities to the benefit of the members. Every single member signed an agreement with the RCSC that says the RCSC will operate facilities for the benefit of the members. Well, if you heard me a little bit today, I have some definite ideas and opinions on how the boards, plural, across the last 20 years have changed that mission statement and are no longer operating for the benefit of the members. If you agree with me, please vote for me. I'll do the best I can. If you don't agree with me, let's move on to the next issue, and I hope you vote anyway. Thanks for being here this afternoon.
And thank you, John. Stella Van Ness.
Thank you, Rich. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for participating in this process, whether that was through being here in person, which I do really appreciate, or via the video to listen to what we have to say. Should I be elected to serve on the board of directors, I want to assure you that I would work diligently to do things in the best interest of the people of Sun City and our great community. I would help to pave a path to meet the needs that already exist, but which also move the community forward to future generations that will be coming here. As a member of the Sun City Foundation, I will keep promoting the Santa for Seniors program to assist those who have been financially struggling. I would also look for new ways and further help to further help the people of Sun City through technology, long-range planning, controlling the financial spending, and making every effort to keep the assessments and the PIF affordable for everyone. I would work diligently with senior management to implement ways to keep expenses down and affordable. I would make every effort to keep our facilities updated and well-maintained, both through the various committees that are in place currently and new ideas for monitoring. I would work with other board members to collect the proper data and facts to evaluate and keep our clubs open to meet the needs of the people of Sun City, as well as future generations that hopefully will be purchasing homes here. I know that we have a lot of work to do here to make this happen, and I would greatly appreciate the help with your vote for me. Thank you. I appreciate your support and your vote.
Thank you, Stella. And now, Alan Lenevsky.
Okay. I'm seeking your support because we have a lot to do. As people have pointed out, we've had a divisive year. We need to bring people together. We need to work together because, again, this place is a wonderful place to live. As you look even around Sundial, you see the Olympic pool. You see the clubs. We have to strive for common sense solutions to our problems. I believe that I can add something to the board because I have been a chair of a number of committees. I've been a condominium association president. I've worked on serious items. We have a serious corporation that needs to be successful. We need to keep our assessments low. We need to maintain our property. We need to have a plan for the future, and that's why I'm on the long-range planning committee. We have to do that. We have to treat everybody with respect and listen to everybody's ideas. We can't make it personal. We can't attack people. We either have to stick to the issues, because I think most people are here, the vast majority of people are here, because they want to enjoy the golden years of their retirement. That's why I'm here. That's why my friends are here. So let's make that happen. Let's keep our finances in good shape. Let's work together. Let's solve our problem. I'm asking for your vote, but again, vote for people you feel that can work together in a common goal and can also have the temperament and judgment to address the issues together so we can succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Frank Thorwald.
I have over 40 years of management and experience in a variety of different areas, from finance, technology, communications, building consensus, working with people, organization, communication, security. You know, I can keep on going. Organizational structure, transportation. I've served on so many task forces and committees over the last 30 years, I've lost track. I want to help my community. I want to serve my community. I have time to do that. And I have a broad knowledge of many, many areas that I think can help the community. I bring together that combination of management, government, and finance and regulatory that you need to be able to come up with creative ideas and communicate with people and build those consensus in a way that's not adversarial. If we do adversarial and we all said, somebody walked up to any one of us and said a few four-letter words and said, then tried to get them to work with you, who would work with you? Nobody. We can't do that. We have to do as Alan said to work together. I think this is a great community. I think it can be even a greater community. I hope you'll vote for me, Frank Thorwald. And I have time. I have plenty of time to do this.
Thank you, Frank. And last but certainly not least, Kat Fimmel.
Thank you. An undertaking like the forum today is very difficult, and I want to take a moment to thank the Elections Committee for all the hard work I know they've put into this. I want to thank the front office staff, that would be Marcia and Karen, for all the support that they've given to me as a candidate. And I especially want to thank this wonderful cameraman here, all the people up there, and all of the employees that helped make today possible. We could not do it without them. I once again want to thank all of you for coming today and participating in the process of self-governance. I want to thank the people that were on YouTube and the people that will watch the video. If you build it, they will come, and they did. And thankfully, new members continue to come to Sun City. Now we need to keep them coming while we maintain the delicate balance between the needs of our current members and the needs of our future members. More than ever, we need to band together to face the winds of change. I know it won't be easy, but I also know that if we work together, we can accomplish great things for our community. Together, we can build a bridge to a bright future, one that is safe, affordable, and competitive, a place where Sun City is the community of choice for this generation and generations to come. I'm ready to do the work, to face the challenges ahead, and to work collaboratively with the board and others to reach the best decisions possible on behalf of our entire community. If you have not seen my literature, please at least get my business card. It has an email address on it. I have heard from many of you. I will respond to all of you. I value your support.
Thank you, Kat. Appreciate that. I'd just like to say in closing, to thank all of you for coming. I'd like to thank Alan and his crew for the outstanding work that they do, not just at this particular event, but at all events that they do. I have a couple of people that I'd really like to thank. Warren Clucker, member of the committee who is here with us today. Ida Eisert stepped in at the very last minute up in the booth. Thank you, Ida. Great job as always sending the YouTube questions to me. Do appreciate that. Tom Marone. Tom, you didn't mess up once. They're going to give you my job if you're not careful. And make you do that during the board meetings, I'll tell you. I'd like to thank the candidates. This is not an easy task. These guys have jumped through so many hoops in the last 6 months, and they've done it willingly, and they've done it very, very well. This is a great group, and I want to thank all of them. You guys did a great job today. Can we give them a hand? They all deserve it, every single one of them.
Mr. Hoffer.
The second candidate forum is coming up at 5:30 Wednesday. It'll be right here in this room. If you didn't have a question asked that you wanted answered, please be here for that. We'll be doing this all over again. The social half hour starts at 5:30. The actual candidate forum starts at 6 p.m. I do want you to know that absentee ballots will be available starting Monday of next week. That's November the 8th. You can call the corporate office. Their number's 561-4600, area code 623. You can have one mailed to you. You can stop by the corporate office at Lakeview and pick one up. It's on the lower level. You will need your member card, and you can only pick up your own, okay? Online voting will also start next Monday at 8 a.m., And there are instruction sheets on how to do that at the back table. With that in mind, walk-in votes will be done on Tuesday, December 14th, from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, and that will be at Lakeview in Social Hall 2. Thank you very much for coming. The YouTubers, thanks for being there. You've made history, and God bless. Thank you.